Thank you for inviting me here. This has been an even greater pleasure than I thought. I have known Diana Cartwright since way back when I think I can say I interviewed you and hired you as the third member of a very young and small consulting firm back in the early to mid-90s. Much has happened since for both of us. So it was a great pleasure that I accepted the invitation. I had no idea the scope that this conference would touch on, and perhaps the best symbol of that is the spiritual reflections that we've had at the start of each session. And for me, that's a great example of how we can move from the head to the heart, because just about every conference we attend, every important moment in our life goes straight to the head without taking time to reach out to the heart and to really feel what it is we're doing. And I think that if every session of Parliament and City Council and the local PTA meeting and every other meeting started that way, not only would more be accomplished, but it would be done in a more positive spirit. All right. I'm sorry I missed the concert last night. I hear that was fantastic. I thought I'd be able to go, but I also sing in a choir, a community choir that sings at charity events. And we were booked to sing at a concert last night ourselves. And I thought I could do both. Turned out they were at about exactly the same time. But then I thought, people in radio and in speaking often say, you know, go out and smoke cigarettes and drink a lot the night before a speech, because then you'll have that deep, rough voice, that sexy voice that will really resonate. Well, being neither much of a smoker nor a drinker, I go and sing tenor in a choir instead. So if I start to crack, you'll know I overdid it a little bit on Helpless in the final closing number. The moment we're at right now is, I would say, shifting from, let's put it another way, the focus for those of us who've been watching this issue of climate change for a while has been almost exclusively on trying to prevent it from happening. And we're kind of at this awkward moment right now where we know it's happening and we can't stop it. We can mitigate it. We can make it less bad, and we can hope that if we act aggressively and quickly, in 50 to 100 years we will see the positive results of our actions. That's hardly an incentive for people to act now when your great-grandchildren might start to see the benefits of it. And not only that, because we're seeing it happen around us, especially with the Arctic as one example we heard about, a lot of the attention is now going to adaptation. Well, initially any of us who consider ourselves part of the environmental movement, that was some kind of a heresy or giving up. When we start putting our attention to adapting to climate change, isn't that throwing up our hands and saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it? Well, it is a simple fact. It is happening. And I think our great challenge is to try to do both at the same time. To recognize it's happening, to recognize that we have to adapt to a changing climate, to recognize that particularly the most vulnerable in our societies are going to feel the impact the hardest and will need the most help, but to do all of that in parallel with trying to prevent or to mitigate further climate change action. I'm going to focus today very much on the personal. We've heard a lot, we've done a lot with the head, we've done a fair bit with the heart, but it's been more at the high level and not so much at the practical action. And that's fine, that was by design, the way the conference was set up. So I and Victoria are the ones who are now called on to bring it right down to a personal level, and I hope you'll understand how and why as I talk. You've heard the term introduced to you, living lightly. I'm sure I'm not the first person to use those words. In fact, when I finally Googled it a few days ago, I sort of went, oh wow, there are that many people using that term. I adopted it as a motto a couple of years ago, sort of out of the blue. I was doing a workshop on using humor in political work. And we were all asked at the end to sort of come up with a motto. We were going to leave this wonderful spiritual retreat and go out into the, quote, real world, whatever that means. And what were we going to take with us to help us guide ourselves? And I adopted this motto of living lightly. And as I touched on yesterday, what that really means to me is, yes, living lightly in the sense of reducing our ecological footprint, consuming fewer resources, spewing out less waste, being responsible for less ecological harm, but just as importantly, doing it with a light heart, trying to keep a sense of humor, understanding that being preachy and earnest has its time and place, but for most people, most of the time, isn't the best way to engage them. Not only that, it's not the best way to get up in the morning and feel really good about what you're trying to do that day. Great, okay, furrowed brow, check. Tied on up tight, check. Okay, I'm ready to face the world. So to me, it's been it's helped me enormously, and I've launched something called the Living Lightly Project to try to further this. But this speech isn't about me, so I'll stop there. You can talk to me about that afterwards. So as I said, living lightly involves humor, joy. It's a way to try to engage your passion. Remind yourself, why am I here? Why did I decide to do that in the first place? Almost certainly it was because you were passionate about it. You may have been intellectually engaged, but almost certainly you were also passionate about it. So where did that passion come from? Can we find that passion every day? Can we look for it in other people and help them to use their passion, to embrace it, to engage it, and to direct it in a positive way? And very importantly, humility. It's going dead on me, is it? That's the cue that I'm talking too long on one slide. There we go. So, humility is important and humor is important. Now, this is the moment where I say anyone who is offended by the sight of the human body without clothing should now avert your eyes. I talked about humor. Keep a sense of humor and use all available tools. That's not meant as a pun, but it could be taken that way. This is a photo taken by that fascinating photographer Spencer Tunick, who invites people to come out, shed their clothing in important places all over the world. And it's remarkable how many people do it. And I found it fascinating over the last couple of years how many groups are stripping themselves off to raise awareness of a cause. And I wondered, what is this about? And my own personal take on it is, in a way, it's about vulnerability. But it's also about humility. It's people saying, you can see me with everything that the Creator gave me. I don't care. I've got power. I have personal power. And I'm putting myself literally out there because I feel that my cause is so important that I'm willing to risk embarrassment. I'm willing to show you all that I am because I feel good about what I am. This was taken on a rapidly receding glacier in Switzerland, where I noticed in this photo, you can't quite see, but it is available on the internet to anyone who wants to. Amazingly buff bodies